In discussions about climate, carbon dioxide is often introduced in a single role, as a greenhouse gas. But this is only one part of a much larger picture. In the previous parts, we established that vegetation does not simply respond to climate change, but plays an active role in it. This was also explored energetically, and the results show that this relationship is clear and significant. Because carbon dioxide is not just part of the atmosphere. It is part of life itself. All known life on Earth is built on carbon. Carbon atoms have a unique ability to form complex and stable molecular structures. In fact, every living creature on Earth is built from only a few elements of the periodic table. The most important ones are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Apart from these, there are a few more elements found in organic molecules in much smaller quantities. Carbon creates the backbone of organic molecules, from carbohydrates and proteins to DNA itself. Without carbon, there is no life. But before carbon becomes part of living systems, it must first enter the biosphere. And it enters in a very specific form, as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. In this sense, every tree, every plant, and ultimately every animal and every human is built from carbon that was once in the air as carbon dioxide. The process that makes this possible is photosynthesis. Using sunlight, plants take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and combine it with water to produce organic matter. From these relatively simple molecules, they build glucose, which serves both as an energy source through respiration and as a building block for more complex molecules. Other elements, such as nitrogen, are also essential for building proteins and cellular structures, but they enter the system through different pathways. As a result, plants release oxygen back into the air. They also release significant amounts of water vapor through transpiration, a process that plays an important role in plant cooling and the movement of water through ecosystems. This is more than a chemical reaction. It is the primary pathway through which solar energy is transformed into biological structure. Energy from the sun becomes stored in chemical bonds, and carbon from the air becomes the material of life. Over time, this process builds entire ecosystems. Forests, grasslands, agricultural systems, all of them depend on the continuous flow of carbon from the atmosphere into living biomass. Photosynthesis is not independent of its environment. Its rate depends on several factors, including light, temperature, water availability, and the concentration of carbon dioxide. There are three main groups of plants regarding the type of photosynthesis. C3 plants, which include most trees and temperate vegetation, tend to be more sensitive to changes in carbon dioxide. C4 plants, more common in warm and dry environments such as corn, sugarcane, and many tropical grasses, are more efficient at lower carbon dioxide levels and show a smaller relative response. Some plants, like cacti, succulents, and pineapple, use a different strategy known as CAM photosynthesis, which allows them to survive in extremely dry environments. If we isolate the effect of carbon dioxide, we can approximate the response using a saturation curve. At low concentrations, photosynthesis is strongly limited by carbon dioxide availability. As carbon dioxide increases, the rate of photosynthesis rises, but gradually approaches a plateau. This behavior is often described using a Michaelis-Menten type approximation. Different plants respond differently. The Farquhar equation provides exact figures, but it depends on species. An important limitation of this relationship is that photosynthesis also depends on other factors, like water and light. On the graph, there are two curves for C3 and C4 plant types each to represent this. CAM photosynthesis uses a different mechanism, so their response to carbon dioxide is more complex and not shown here. The conservative curve applies when resources are somewhat limited. On the other hand, the optimistic curve shows the case with otherwise favorable conditions. This means that increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide can enhance photosynthetic activity, especially for C3 vegetation. Even at the typical pre-industrial level of 280 ppm, the photosynthesis of C3 plants is significantly limited. At lower concentrations, plant growth becomes increasingly constrained. Below 200 ppm, some species start dying, and below 150 ppm, most plants struggle to survive. In controlled agricultural environments, the relationship between carbon dioxide and plant growth is not just theoretical, it is actively used. In greenhouses around the world, farmers often increase the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air above the ambient level of 400 ppm, typically to levels between 600 and 1,000 parts per million. This process is known as carbon dioxide enrichment. By raising carbon dioxide concentrations, growers can enhance photosynthesis and improve plant productivity under suitable conditions. The effect is especially pronounced for C3 plants, which include many crops commonly grown in greenhouses, such as tomatoes, peppers, and strawberries. Under suitable conditions, similar responses can also be observed in many staple crops, including wheat, rice, and soybeans. The magnitude of the effect depends on factors such as nutrient availability and water supply, but farmers often provide these by fertilizers and irrigation. Under well-managed conditions, carbon dioxide enrichment is widely used as a practical tool to increase yield and optimize plant growth. This provides a direct, observable example of how plant systems respond to changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide. But the importance of this process goes far beyond plants. The carbon fixed during photosynthesis does not remain in leaves. It moves through the entire biosphere. Plants are consumed by animals. Organic matter becomes part of soils. Carbon is transferred, transformed, and recycled across ecosystems. In this way, nearly all living organisms depend, directly or indirectly, on carbon that was fixed by photosynthesis. The biosphere as a whole is built on this continuous flow. Over the past several decades, satellite measurements have revealed a widespread increase in vegetation activity across the Earth. This phenomenon is often referred to as global greening. Multiple datasets, including long-term vegetation indices, indicate that leaf area and plant productivity have increased in many regions. The causes of this trend are complex. Climate, land use, precipitation, and nutrient availability all play important roles. However, a widely cited study by Zhu and colleagues, published in Nature Climate Change, identified atmospheric carbon dioxide as a major contributing factor to this global greening trend. Their analysis, based on a combination of satellite data and modeling, suggests that increased carbon dioxide levels have enhanced plant growth in large parts of the world. This does not imply a single cause, but it does indicate that the biosphere responds measurably to changes in atmospheric composition. Evidence from longer timescales points to similar connections. During certain periods in the past, regions that are now arid, such as the Sahara, supported significantly more vegetation. These African humid periods were associated with shifts in climate conditions, including higher temperatures and changes in atmospheric composition. Research by Armstrong and others suggests that these periods coincided with relatively elevated carbon dioxide levels. Again, this does not identify a single controlling factor, but it highlights a recurring pattern. Vegetation, climate, and atmospheric carbon dioxide are closely linked over time. So the question arises, what role could increased carbon dioxide concentration play in making the Sahara green again? Carbon dioxide is also a greenhouse gas. As discussed in Part 3, its radiative effect highly depends on atmospheric conditions, including humidity and the presence of water vapor. In dry regions, its radiative influence can be more pronounced, while in humid regions, part of its spectral effect overlaps with water vapor. At the same time, carbon dioxide is closely linked to vegetation. Under many conditions, higher carbon dioxide concentrations are associated with increased plant growth. Over longer timescales, periods with more extensive vegetation cover often coincide with warmer climate states. As shown in Part 5, changes in vegetation are also linked to changes in energy transport, particularly through latent heat and evapotranspiration, which significantly contribute to temperature variations. Could changes in vegetation associated with global greening contribute to observed global warming? In any case, carbon dioxide may influence the climate system through multiple pathways. One pathway is radiative. Another pathway may involve the biosphere through its influence on vegetation, water cycling, and the distribution of energy within the system. These processes are complex and interconnected. Rather than pointing to a single mechanism, they indicate that carbon dioxide operates within a coupled system where atmosphere, vegetation, and energy flows interact. Understanding these interactions is essential for interpreting the role of carbon dioxide in climate. Taken together, these observations suggest that carbon dioxide is not simply an external forcing acting on the climate system. It is part of a dynamic exchange between the atmosphere and the biosphere. It is taken up, stored, released, and recycled. And this raises a deeper question. If carbon dioxide is so tightly connected to life, how does it move through the Earth system as a whole? And what determines its changes over time? In the next part, we will follow carbon dioxide as it moves between air, water, and life, and explore the processes that shape its variability. In the next part, we will discuss the properties of carbon dioxide within the boundaries of widely accepted science. We will explore how it moves within the Earth system, and what could possibly cause the changes of its concentration in the past. If you liked this part, don't forget to share the video so others may also enjoy it. Also remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part and other exciting videos released in the future.